Shake well before using. This better work. I guess a really good question is, what am I making today? So I am on a mission to recreate a pair of pants that I had a really long time ago. Now, I also have a really funny story about them, so maybe I'll tell you later. But these pants were really beautiful, dark blue color, sort of like linen blend, wide legs, so very stylish, perfect for summertime. And back then, we used to live in Vegas, so as you know, like 10 months out of the year in Vegas, it's like super hot. So these pants are great for that. What's not great is that I have two pretty big problems that come with that. Number one, I don't have those pants anymore. That was a really long time ago, maybe like I would say 7-8 years ago. And number two, I have this gorgeous linen, but it's not blue, it's actually white. So first, I'm actually gonna start with the design of the pants because I have it in my mind, but I know that you don't. So let me kind of pull up a couple of images that will illustrate what am I going for. And then we will tackle the problem of white linen versus blue linen. So I got a couple here that vaguely resemble what I'm going for, but you get the general idea. Now, if you sew and draft your own patterns, let me guide you through real quick how I developed my pattern. So first, I started with the grid of the pants, and we did that in one of the tutorials on my channel. So if you want, you can go take a look. Now with that grid, it makes it really easy and straightforward to draft any pants. The top of the pattern, I actually went ahead and copied from my pencil skirt. This pencil skirt fits me really well. The darts are in the right spot, and all I did, I just matched them up at the hip level and copied the top part, because the top part will be exactly the same whether it's the pants or the skirt. Then, of course, I added a little bit of extra width to the pants, about 1 inch on each side, because I really wanted that wide leg. Pockets, as many of you know, are very important, so I have 2 in the front and 2 in the back. Of course, a zipper fly. And by the way, if you're really scared of sewing zipper flies for the pants, please don't. It's really easy and straightforward. I just did a very detailed step-by-step tutorial on that topic, and you can find that in the info box below underneath this video. And that really finalizes my entire pattern, so it's really easy, pretty straightforward, and I can move on to the next step. First, I gotta get all that linen, of which I have a whooping 10 yards. I bought it last year as a bulk buy because I knew I'm going to be working quite a bit with linen, and I love it. But needless to say, I don't want to buy anything extra. I just want to use what I have. So I think I'm gonna use fabric dye in order to get the color that I want. But I do have to do that quickly because my little one's gonna be home in about 2.5 hours, and by the time that she gets home, I definitely need to get my fabric sorted out, because toddlers and fabric dye, those are two things that cannot go together. So I definitely have to move it so that way I can get it done. I'm gonna go ahead, lay down all of the linen that I have, take the pattern pieces for the pants, lay them on top. I'm not gonna cut the pattern pieces yet, but I will count out how much fabric do I need for these pants, and I'm gonna cut off that amount so that way I know exactly how much fabric do I need to dye, so that way I don't waste extra fabric. Actually, the thing that all 3 of these are 3 different colors of blue, so I'm gonna take a moment, decide which one I want, which one would be best, easiest in this circumstance, and go with that. So I think I've decided to go with this one. And before we get started, I gotta read the instructions, right? So it says pre-wash fabric to remove any finishes or stains. check. For every pound of dry fabric, which is what I understand is about 3 yards of medium weight fabric, you would need to use half of this bottle. And then it says dye bath must have enough water for fabric to move freely, so I have to find a large enough pot. And to achieve more intense color, you just double the quantity of your dye, which is a good tip given that I have dye left over for the amount of fabric that I'm going to be using, which should be not a problem. All right, shake well before using. Then I will set up the bucket. Hey, Jared, get your feet out of there.
Oh, you're recording?
Yeah, I am. Get your feet out of there. These are our old kitchen floors, so it is what it is. I'm just gonna put the towel underneath the bucket and be extra careful. Add hot water to a plastic bucket, stainless steel sink, or stainless steel pot. Ideally, water temperature should be 140 degrees Fahrenheit or greater. Add 1 teaspoon of liquid dish detergent. That's interesting, I've never done that before. For best results, add 1 cup of salt to dye bath for cotton, rayon, or linen. That's for us, because I'm dyeing linen. Then add dye, mix well, submerge wet fabric into the dye bath, stir consistently for 30 minutes or until desired color is achieved. Up to 60 minutes, that's good to know. And fabric will look darker when wet and prior to washing. So I'm just really trying to see if the fabric did dye evenly, but the soap bubbles and the moisture from fabric being wet really makes it hard to see. So I'm just trying to determine whether it did dye evenly or not, you know, to the best of my abilities. Then rinse with cool water until rinse water begins to run clear. Wash in warm water with mild detergent by hand or in your washing machine with an old towel. Speaking of old towels, so after I got done with linen and I got it out of this plastic tub, I had all of this dye left over, and it seemed almost wasteful to just dump it out because it looked pretty concentrated at that point. So I thought, well, what if we dye something else? And my husband was right there, so we thought, well, we have these really good towels that we've been using for years and years and years, but they're no longer white. So what if we just take one of the towels and see how it turns out? And that's exactly what we did. And with that being said, that could be a very nice and inexpensive way how to refresh the towels that you already have in terms of color, instead of buying a completely new set. And now, ladies and gentlemen, let's cue the drum roll and let's take a look how these two pieces turned out. And they turned out really nice. Now, the blue linen did have some splashes here and there. I mean, if you really look close up, you can see them, that some of the spots were a little bit darker, some of the spots were a little bit lighter, but that's if you like really look at it. So I think once I cut it up and once I turn them into the pants, you won't really be able to notice it at all unless you like really look at it, and you know, in reality, who's ever gonna do that? So it's linen. I love the color. I think it's going to look great as pants, and I'm really not that bothered about it. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get sewing. As you can gather, this is the speedy version of the sewing process of the construction of these pants. Now, if you love sewing, but you've been always hesitant about, you know, fabric transformations in terms of dyeing or painting it or things like that, but you always wanted to try, I can tell you that looking back at it, sewing definitely took a lot longer than the dyeing process, although the dyeing process seems a lot more involved in terms of you have to wash the fabric, prepare the dye bath, then, you know, do the dye bath, then rinse it out, and you know, things like that. So if you've been always curious, I want to encourage you to give it a try. Definitely dedicate a couple of hours to it so that way you don't have anywhere to rush, like in my case it was, but have fun with it, see where it takes you. Maybe you even want to try a couple of colors together, like for example red and yellow. Do one side of the fabric in red, one side of the fabric in yellow, and see how they meet in the middle. That could be really fun too. So tons of possibilities. I'm just throwing out ideas over here. And as this speedy process of the sewing is unfolding on your screens, I promised you that funny story about the pants that I'm currently recreating. So that was really long time ago. As I mentioned, we lived back in Vegas, and at that time I worked as a store manager at Starbucks. And I don't remember too many details about that day, but what I do remember is it was really busy and I was helping my team on the floor, and it was right after the morning rush. All of us were super tired and we had that like little powwow moment, and after that I was like, okay, well, let's just rotate the milk in the fridges. And as soon as I sat down, because the fridges are kind of like below your waist, so you have to kind of sit down a little bit, you know, kneel a little bit to open the fridge. As soon as I did that, guess what? My linen pants right down the crotch seam. I mean, it was horrible. Now, later on, we did joke that it was a funny moment, something so unexpected, a thing that you probably will remember like for the rest of your lifetime. And obviously right now, so many years later, we're still talking about it. But in that particular situation, it was horrible. Not only because it happened like right in the middle of my workday, which was another problem in itself, but also it was a gift from my mom, and I really loved those pants and I had them for so many years. So it was really sad to see that they were like at the end of their life cycle, and I knew that because, you know, with linen, especially when you wash it that often, when you wear it that often, it thins out in places. So I really couldn't repair them at all when I got home and I looked at it. And by the way, for the rest of the shift, because the rip was really that big, I was wearing two aprons. One was like up front, like you would usually wear an apron, and the other one was tied in the back to cover that big rip because it definitely needed to be covered. So I had no opportunity to repair those pants unless I would insert like a patch in the crotch area, and that just wasn't looking right. So that's the funny story about these pants, and that's why I'm really excited about this project where I'm recreating those pants that I lost for that rip accident. I'm really excited because the last two things that I have left to do is the hem and the little closure right over here. And by the way, I have a little surprise for you guys. I made two pairs of pants. They're pretty much identical, same pattern that I showed you a little bit earlier, just a couple of minor differences. Of course, this is also some sort of linen blend fabric, but in stripes. So let me finish the hem, let me attach the little closure, and let's try them on. Now, did you see that floral jacket I was wearing with the blue pants? Check out this video to hear the story how I made this neoprene jacket and everything that went wrong. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, happy, thoughtful sewing. I'll see you soon. Bye!